I'm Joe Green.
I'm Aditya.
I'm the president and founder of Forward US. So thanks so much for having both of us here today. We're pretty excited. So we started Forward US with about 40 different leaders from the tech community. Some of them are pictured up here. And we're really excited about it, hopefully to talk to you about something a little different than you've been hearing about. So we started Forward US because we think we're in the middle of the second great economic transformation in American history. The first was in the 19th century, where we went from an agrarian country to an industrial economy. And now we're in the midst of the growth of the knowledge economy. So we became the world's preeminent industrial power because of a lot of different critical inputs. We had a lot of land, rivers, natural resources, industrial people. And now, as we build our companies in the knowledge economy, if you look at it, there's just one main ingredient: people, and your occasional cloud server. So it's intuitive to us to push for public policies that are about focusing on having the best trained, most talented people to build our companies. So our goal in starting Forward US is to organize the tech community to advocate for a bipartisan policy agenda that's around investing in talent and people, in the human capital that we need to build the knowledge economy. So we believe that as the beneficiaries of the knowledge economy, it's incumbent upon us to make the knowledge economy as inclusive as possible, both because it's good for business and because it's the right thing to do. So what are the policies that are going to boost the knowledge economy? We're starting with immigration reform, which we're going to talk to you about in a minute, but also education reform to make sure that we're training people to participate in the knowledge economy and supporting scientific research. So just to give you a little background about how I came to this, so I started out working in political campaigns, but ended up very accidentally in tech. I founded causes on Facebook, and then a company called Nation Builder, which builds software for political campaigns. So I've had this experience for about the last decade of being a political guy, but working in tech. And what I found is I would talk to a lot of folks in tech who were really passionate about changing the world, really were interested in the political system, but felt there was just a real cultural disconnect. So I think for too long, our community has felt disconnected from the political process. And at Forward US, our aim is to help engage our community around the fights that matter in putting knowledge economy policies in place that will create the jobs of the future. So why are we starting with immigration? Well, partially because it's on the agenda, and because we think it's an issue that really resonates with our community. Both because we all have an intuitive understanding, so much of us being immigrants, of the importance of these policies, and also because we've seen it in all of our friends. So many of you have, you may have heard the term comprehensive immigration reform. There's a bill in front of the Senate right now. It's a great bill. It's not perfect. We're advocating on behalf of that bill. And there are 5 main principles that we're trying to accomplish. So first of all, we want to fix our legal immigration system so it actually serves both the American economy and American families. Secondly is we want a workable number of H-1B visas to help attract and keep the most talented people to America. Third is that we want a pathway to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented people that live in America. Fourth is we want to secure the border and give law enforcement the tools to enforce, hopefully, a newly fixed set of rules. And finally, we want simple and effective employment verification so employers can play by the rules. But that's sort of immigration in the abstract. You don't have to take it from me. So I want to let Aditya, as one of our founders and a longtime good friend of mine, talk about his personal experience of how the country's immigration system is broken and why fixing it is good for our economy and good for our families.
Thank you very much, Joe. Much as I would like to tell all of you about DC politics, I'm going to talk about something way simpler, which is my story. I grew up in 7 different countries. When I was graduating from high school, I could go to college either in Singapore, the UK, or America. I eventually ended up deciding on Carnegie Mellon in sunny Pittsburgh for one simple reason. They had managed to attract the world's best computer scientists and HCI folks and robotics engineers. And CMU delivered. I am now a lifelong Steelers fan. And in addition, I basically got to learn from some of the best people, not just professors, but some of my fellow students. And then I graduated. And I was put in these highly absurd situations where I would go talk to a company, it could be a hedge fund or Oracle in my case, and they'd want to give me a job. I'd want to work with them, but I'd had to caveat it by saying, hey, listen, I can only start on October 1st, and by the way, there's a 25% chance that I might not get my visa and I'll have to leave the country. But I ended up getting my visa, my H-1B visa. And then the same story repeated itself. I got to go work at Oracle and then at Facebook. And I got to learn and develop along with some of the best people in the world, some of the best product managers, the best designers, and the best engineers. And I learned a lot. Along the way, I had to go through at least 10 H-1B visa renewals, 2 different green card applications, which finally resulted in a green card after about 6 years of uncertainty. And then I left Facebook to start my company. I had my PR. I was a PR then, but my co-founder didn't. I think what we learned was something really, really simple. Do not start a company in this country if you don't have a green card. Go to India, go to the UK, go to China, anywhere. But it's remarkably difficult in this country to start a company if you don't have a green card, which is kind of crazy because 40% of Silicon Valley companies are started by immigrants. What's the disconnect here? But we started a company, and then it got acquired by Dropbox. And then I find myself in these same absurd situations. It's April 29th today. On April 2nd, we ran out of H-1B visas for America. I have been contacted by designers in Scandinavia, a PhD student studying in Cambridge in England, both of whom want to work for Dropbox, but I have to turn them away because there are no more visas to let them into the country. But life is not just about work. It turns out I have a wife also. And how do you make a decision about getting married or potentially settling down in a city when you don't know if you can actually remain in the country? So, I'm here to tell you my story, not to elicit sympathy. I think it was difficult, but I managed to get all the visas that I needed, an F1, an H-1B, an EB-1, and EB-2, and so on. And I did OK. But I do know that for every step along the way that I managed to get a visa, I personally know people who didn't. Whether it was as a student, as an entrepreneur, as a job creator, as a job seeker, each way along the way, it's been really difficult. And I'm here to talk to you because I know that all of you in this room know somebody. If you work in the tech industry, you know somebody who is going through this exact same problem right now. The fear, the uncertainty, the lack of essentially having to curtail your ambition to follow your dreams just because you don't know if you'll be allowed to stay here. And I think we can fix this. And Joe's going to talk a little bit about that.
So it's pretty clear, from Aditya's story and for me in the news that our immigration system is broken. Part of the reason for that, the last major immigration legislation was passed in 1986. I was 3 years old. Many of you were probably not born yet. So this is one of those urgent policy problems that really demonstrates how broken Washington is. And I think where we can apply some of our patented tech community innovative problem-solving skills. So the reason that immigration reform is finally on the docket, that you're hearing about it, that there's a bill in the Senate, is that for the first time in a long time, the leaders of both the Republican and Democratic parties want immigration reform to happen. The problem or the challenge, and what makes this not inevitable, but definitely doable, is that for a lot of individual members of Congress, it's seen as very politically difficult in their home districts. So what we want to do is take members of the tech community, not just in New York, not just in San Francisco, but all over the country, and get them to directly tell their representatives in Congress that the tech community in their district supports them in taking the tough vote in Congress in favor of immigration reform. These folks hear a lot from the anti-immigrant groups. We want to make sure they're hearing from us as well. So our plan, and we've hired a whole team of organizers to do both in-person organizing, attending meetups, conferences like this one, and also online, in all the different places that our community gathers. And we're going to then pull everybody together to then use all of the different channels, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, email, in-person, text messaging, to make sure Congress knows how important this is to our community. So the most important thing I can ask you, it's pretty simple, is to please sign up. We've got a text message keyword set up. Please do it. Facebook and Twitter. And really, all of us here, you're all probably sitting on social media right now to, tell your friends about this. This is, an effort we want to be of the whole tech community. We'd also love to hear your ideas. We have lots of volunteer programmers and designers who've been helping us out. So I want to leave you with one final thought. The core ideal of entrepreneurs, I believe, is that we do not accept the world as it is. We work hard every day to create the innovative companies and products that improve people's lives. So let's bring that same unwillingness to accept the status quo to our political process. Thank you guys so much for listening to us, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you all.